All right, we are good to go.
Well, let's get started. It's 7 p.m. on the 6th of July in the year 2020. This is a meeting of the Stayton City Council. Our first item of business, we have everyone here except Councilor Cook. The staff that needs to be here apparently is here. I see Susanna and Dan and those. You're here and Keith is here.
Yes, and we've got Lance and Jana and Chief Riesendal's here also.
First item this evening is consent agenda. Two items, June 15th, 2020 City Council minutes, and B, the acceptance of abstract election results for the 2020. So, what do you folks want to do with those?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second to accept the consent agenda as presented with those two items. And we'll need to vote on that. So all in favor say aye, please.
Aye.
Here, don't we need to?
Yeah, you better. Go
Yeah.
ahead. Let's
Yes.
call them and
Yes.
get each one to say something.
Sure. Counselor McDonald?
Yes.
Counselor Mullen?
Yes.
Counselor Ort?
Yes.
Counselor Patty?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 4-0.
The next item is, let's see, there's no public hearings. Next item is general business, phase 2 and Stayton County Memorial Pool. There's no period or question mark or anything on that, so we'll just let that one go. Mr. Campbell, staff report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Council. So tonight before you is information and hopefully a conversation and decision on phase 2 reopening of the State Memorial Pool. So as everyone's aware, recently the governor did approve Marion County for phase 2 reopening of the plan. What was a surprise to us in the city was we had been notified both privately and in conversations with the governor's office that the pools would not be able to be reopened in phase 2. And the decision has been reversed and pools can now be reopened in phase 2. In your packet, we've included information on the guidance from the governor's office. We've included adapting your aquatics facility from CIS, which is our insurance agent. We've included the safety protocols and the pool reopening financial analysis. What I do want to, we've shared all this information so that you had all the information we had when we were looking at this. Really tonight isn't to discuss per se the safety protocols and decisions that Billy, our pool manager, has put together. Really what the decision is regarding is the concern that we have as a staff on the reopening, and part of the information was the CIS COVID-19 where we learned that they will not be covering any claims or insurance related to this matter. So on a case-by-case basis, they'll look at the situation. They will potentially cover up to $100,000 in legal fees, but what we need to know and understand is that there is an additional risk and liability that we assume where we can't get insurance. So Susanna reached out to insurance agents to start to look and see and to see if we could get supplemental insurance as a solution, and there is no such thing. So right now we're unable to get any sort of insurance, additional insurance for our pool. So what this means is that we would take all risk and liability, financial risk and liability, if there was any sort of claim or lawsuit related to COVID-19. So we're coming to you under normal circumstances, operational needs and something, but this is big enough that the impact could be significant. And so we wanted to have a conversation and get thoughts on what we wanted to do. Also, I'll say this, COVID cases are rising. The governor has stated that there is some concern that she may do some rollbacks. What that could look like or mean, I don't know. We haven't heard, but it is still a possibility that there will be some additional changes if COVID cases and hospitalizations continue to rise. So With that, I'll be happy to turn it over to answer any questions or comments. Susanna's here to answer any questions, and we'd be happy to help foster the discussion.
Thank you. Comments and thoughts?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Well, thank you. Keith, we have the estimated revenue and expenditures of the pool, operating it. So this is if it opens, but obviously there's costs associated with the pool regardless if it's open. So what are those? So if we don't open the pool, what are expenses versus?
So some of the
Is there any benefit?
Yeah, and I'll let Susanna jump on here too if she wants. I mean, some of the analysis we looked at is a survey went out to pool patrons, 519, if I believe, off the top of my head. We got a response back on people who said they'd be willing to come back in the maybes. And so based off that, we did some estimates. And the reality of the situation is, and something we wanted to point out, opening the pool, we basically, with our estimated cost, will be supplementing revenues based off those estimates that we made. So we made a best guess on what we felt like would be realistic expectations of people returning, the realistic standards that we're going to have to set in terms of the social distancing requirements that are still mandated, and those are all in your packet. But honestly, opening the pool will have a greater cost than what we would be bringing in. So there is always the fixed costs of just the standard operations of the pool in terms of maintaining it. By opening the pool up, we would incur some additional costs. So it isn't something we'll be making money back on. And I think it is an important distinction to remember, and not a bad thing. Pools are something you supplement, but it is just important for the analysis to know that opening the pool will incur other costs. Suzanne, anything you want to add on that?
The pool remains closed, you still have one staff member overseeing, making sure chemicals are done and electrical. We still plan on doing some of the construction for repairs that we had planned, but it would be a lot lower than the full thing going. That helps.
Okay. Keith, question from this end. In your memo, you put estimated revenue and expenditures. What's the time period there that you were considering? That for the rest of the year? So first of January. What was the time period there?
There really isn't a time period. What we did is looked at the monthly expenses associated with operating the pool in a phase 2 environment, with the limitations that we have currently in phase 2 in regards to recommendations from the governor's office and then the recommendations from CIS or insurance agent. So that's really what we're looking at there.
So let's follow up.
Yeah.
Of those. Cost of person, this is for a month then. Take your memo. Cost of personnel, $9,400. Cost of operations, $5,500. $15,000 total cost. Revenue, $27,028. Difference about a deficit of $12,250. That's just for a month. Is that right? Did I read that correctly? Yes,
that would be correct. I think one of the things that's important to understand is we're not a profit organization. So we're not opening the pool to make money, is essentially one of the things that I think it's important to show this, but I don't want to get too caught up in the weeds of the losses or our revenues. Understanding that opening the pool will bear additional costs than just leaving the pool closed. And that's just part of the analysis, but ultimately what we're trying to show here is we're not a for-profit organization. So this isn't something we're doing in order to make revenues per se.
Right. No, I will know that, but I'm just curious as to the time period and what, and make sure everyone else understood that.
And this would be the estimates as long as we remain in phase 2. Phase 3, by definition, currently is what I would say is a return to pre-COVID-19 normals.
All right. Someone else, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes. Counselor.
How,
You're on.
Keith, where does the money from the levy fit in there?
Well, we still have the levy money for this year. So the way the levy works is we have it through this fiscal year, so the 2021 fiscal year. The next council meeting, July 20th, will bring forward a recommendation on when we can go for the levy again. There's two more options, the December and then the next spring, next May. We had a meeting with stakeholders from all three areas, parks, pools, and libraries last week to have a conversation with them. So that will be what we'll be talking about and looking for. For this year, the levy is still in place. The issue will be if we're unable to pass it before next May or by the end of the cycle of next May.
So are these follow-up, are these costs after the levy money has been applied?
So for the budget piece, the levy money is not, that $2,800 is your membership fees that you would be collecting. Because the levy money doesn't start until October. So what we're living on now is the cash that we've received to date, which is our beginning fund balance. So the beginning fund balance will be offsetting that negative $13,000, and that's why the levy money is not in there. So we actually will not see this fiscal year's money until October.
And a follow-up question for Susanna. Susanna, what is our normal revenue?
What do you mean our normal revenue?
So this is our anticipated revenue. If you're saying if this many people actually, if the 61 people come back, this is our anticipated revenue per month. But what is our normal revenue for the pool?
So for what we budgeted for, what we did for memberships coming in was between rentals, daily receipts, programs, and membership, 167,000 total for the year.
About 14,000.
So about 13, yeah, would be normally what would come in. About 14,000 is what we budgeted to come in if the pool was running in full capacity.
Per month.
Per month, correct. Taking that 167,000, the estimated revenue, and that includes rentals. I took the rental out of there, the rental amount.
Are we allowing rentals of the pool if we open up?
No, not at this point, not in the beginning. Maybe after we get moving to see how things work. We're looking at about 12,000 if we took out the rentals. So to do a slow opening phase, our first schedule is just members coming in and using the pool on a Monday through Friday basis. This is a Monday through Friday budget, and then see how that looks before we look at what we can do next. We also don't know if swimming teams will be, what they'll be doing and those kind of things as well. So this is just the first part, right, Keith?
Yeah.
And then one more follow-up. So I'm looking at the guidelines and the way that I'm interpreting this, are we not going to have swim lessons either?
You mean swim lessons for like the children and things for your traditional? Yes, no.
Yes.
There's not a way to set up swim lessons for little children that wouldn't be able to keep social distancing.
Yeah.
So this schedule is lap swim, water movement, core conditioning, light aquatics, joints and movement, deep plunge, senior time, and try, and that's it basically. Those type of exercises that we can keep the social distancing and stay within our limit of how many can be in a class.
One of the challenges in talking with the city attorney and talking with Pre-Loss is that, I provided the guidelines we put in there in terms of the policies in place, is we have to have strict adherence of that. So staff is going to have to maintain and do that. And basically the recommendation and what I've been told is if we're unable to get cooperation or unable to do it, we need to shut down the pool. So being able to follow the safety protocols and guidelines are going to be one of the crucial components So I guess I'll just say it maybe this way more directly than I should. Not just having a plan, it's following the plan in terms of the liability issues. And in terms of any sort of lawsuits that would happen, we would need to be able to show that we were diligent about following these processes and procedures. So we just have to be really careful on these things that we do that. And I know Billy's had a lot of conversations about how we make sure in terms of the classes that are happening and those impacts that we can make sure people maintain that sort of distance. And then the setup that she's done to make sure that we can sanitize and to take proper precautions to make sure safety procedures are followed. But it is going to be really critical and important that we strictly adhere to those.
In the vein of following guidelines, does Billy anticipate any real concerns with a bunch of adults? She's got, her lifeguards are teenagers, young adults, people saying, "Oh, I'm not going to do this or that." Did she anticipate problems with that at all?
Well, I think it's just a matter of education and working with people and trying to help them understand that, these are the guidelines we have to follow to keep the, if we decide to reopen the pool, these are the guidelines we're going to have to follow, and following those strictly is going to be critical. And if we can't get compliance, we'll have to shut down the pool. I mean, that's the risk and liabilities that we have to take. So having the guidelines, making sure people understand them, follow them, holding people to those standards is important and critical. So it's just going to be part of that. And if we can't be successful in that, then we're going to have to either find another way or stop operations of the pool until we can solve that dilemma.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
this is Councilor Patty. Keith, I have a question regarding the patron protocols towards the end of our packet. Do you anticipate being able to utilize this document as we open the pool to more patrons outside of just the membership?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is what we need to share in terms of reopening the pool. There's a time frame that's going to be needed in order to. Billy has the pool ready to go in terms of safety protocols, but getting the pool ready and getting information out and getting lifeguards back trained and with the new protocols and sharing this information is going to be critical. There is a waiver form. We'll have them sign. I think as part of the waiver form, we'll have the information there as well, just so they have that information, hopefully to give it before they come in. Just understand with the waiver, that isn't a legal shield. It's just an exhibit in the lawsuit. How is that? But sure. It's also to show that we took this seriously and we made sure patrons were aware of the expectations that we had.
Due diligence was done. If I may have a follow-up, so signature of this waiver and acknowledgement of these patron protocols would be mandatory by him.
Correct.
By entrance of this facility.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
that helps me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Someone else? Other thoughts? Questions, concerns here?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, yes.
Keith, the only other question that David just asked, one of the questions I had, but the only one that I had was that if we talked to any other of the nearby cities on what they were doing, I know Silverton just opened up their pool last week, I believe. I don't know, theirs is a YMCA facility, so I don't know if it's any different than ours in that scenario. Which as far as protocols and liabilities.
Yeah, with all of our entities, whether it be the library, the pool, even City Hall, looking at what others are doing. I know Billy's been working with pool associations both in the state, Oregon Pool Association, I think, and then the national one as well. Different states have different requirements. For instance, Florida is different than Oregon at this point, but and looking at that, and we did look and see what some others are doing. Sharing the CIS information and all that, we just decided to come forward with what the challenges we would face in terms of reopening and the risks that we would take. So I can't speak to how Silverton's addressing that. I didn't follow up on that. It's just a matter of talking to our attorney, talking to Pre-Loss, and then this report.
Other thoughts or questions? Okay, what do you folks want to do with this tonight?
Mr. Mayor.
I do have another question.
Go ahead.
So we're only gonna open up the pool for fitness classes? And are we only opening up the pool to people who have memberships?
It wouldn't be just necessarily to people with memberships, but people who wanted to join as well. I mean, it could. It would just be a matter of the same type thing, acknowledging the waiver and the safety protocols. Yeah, they have to set up online too. That's
another question about rentals. If we can allow 20 different people in the pool at a time for a fitness class, why couldn't we open it up for a rental for 20 people?
the rent. Yeah, the classes, we can set people up where they have to stand to do the classes. With the rental, it'd be harder to maintain people renting the pool, not necessarily being within social distance. Like Susanna said, I think at some point we can look at as we expand forward, but it definitely creates more challenges in terms of making people that are in the pool who rented keep 6 feet of distance from each other. That's the big challenge we're going to face.
So then we're not going to open it up for open swim.
At this point, not with open swim. The only way we can do open swim is 1 person per lane. So
you're not opening up the pool to anyone who has children.
Children can come to participate in the class if they want. I mean, I don't think a 2-year-old's gonna want to do aqua aerobics, but.
I guess I just kind of feel like it's kind of you're kind of setting it up for failure.
None of us enjoy I mean, it's why we share the information. None of us, I mean, all of us would be ready to return to a sense of normal, but the challenges are and the realities of what we have to face in terms of liability and best practices make some of those other issues challenging. I mean, with the open swim, like I said, we would have to limit it to 1 person per lane. That's the requirement. You can't have more than 1 person per lane. So same thing with some of the other issues is maintaining the protocols that are in place, especially if we open this and have no liability insurance. So that's the risk that we are inherently taking when we do this. So being able to maintain those safety protocols is going to be important.
Yeah, folks, greetings.
Hey.
We set our clocks ahead.
What'd you say? Sorry.
We set our clocks ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I was finishing up a meeting and it ran over. So I wanted to thank you guys for the dialogue that you guys are having. I know this is a difficult discussion for our community, and I'm curious, and Councilor Orr has kind of brought that curiosity to my mind. If there's a way that we could allow for swim lessons that are, guardian or parent guided, with like the instructor kind of giving socially distanced instruction, just something a little bit different for the times. I don't know if that's something that has been thought of or discussed, but I'm also concerned with Councilor Orr that it is kind of setting it up for a little bit of failure. But I do understand the liability that the city has at the same time. So I'm definitely understanding both sides right there. Just curious.
Somebody else.
Mr. Mayor, real quickly.
Yes.
I'm getting notifications that apparently the governing body is extremely difficult to hear in this live broadcast, but staff are very loud and to the point where we're muffled. So if staff can check into the audio issues, perhaps.
You're not hearing staff? Is that what you said?
No, they're hearing staff well, but they're not hearing anybody else. We're looking at it right now, and it's showing everything is working fine, and we're hearing you clearly from our end. Hold on.
Their screen is going to get kind of weird here because I've got to reduce your guys' screen, so to look at the settings. Please hold. Let's see. I'm not sure why you guys would be.
This is Lance. I can hear you guys all very well. I'm just putting my 2 cents in.
On YouTube, Lance?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not on YouTube.
Okay.
Excuse me. Bye.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, everything is set up the way that we have it with every meeting, so I'm not sure.
Well, perhaps it's on their end. It might be
Yeah, I'm
their
sorry.
Actually, I'm gonna step out real quick and see if I can get my headphones like Counselor Patty has, and, because I know that I have issues hearing myself when I rewatch on YouTube, so I'm gonna just step out real quick to do that.
Okay. I'll let you slide back on.
Well, we can continue to see if, I'm not sure what more we can do at this point, honestly.
No, it's fine.
Victims of technology.
Yeah.
I really can't wait to be back in the same room again.
So we're looking to see whether it's a
Amen.
YouTube issue, but we can't fix that right now, unfortunately.
You don't find this fun and enlightening this would go? Aren't these exciting evenings with
Oh,
the
yeah, you know.
15 minutes of business and an hour of harangue?
Yeah, unfortunately, it looks like right now there's not much more we can do. It looks like everything is set the way we've had everything set. So I can't speak to what.
Precedent.
Yeah, and we can.
Well, I just had my headphones a little bit ago, and now I can't find them. We'll just continue on. Sorry about that. Oh, wait.
Any closer to thinking about what we might want to do with this?
Awesome.
There's room for more discussion if we need it.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I am prepared to make a motion whenever everybody's satisfactorily got questions answered at this point.
No, that's fine. And there's some good questions there.
I think the other thing I'll say that's not in the memo is guidelines are changing rapidly all the time. So, we're trying to keep up with them the best we can as more information becomes available, as more testing is done. So, with all of this, I think we're going to continue to work to make sure that we're following what the guidelines and best practices are. And as those change, we'll be willing to adapt and change with them as well.
Thank you, Keith, for that.
Okay, these aren't working. I just got a message from someone who's watching that says we need to get closer to our mics and people can't hear us. So I don't know if it's the same person, David, that contacted you, but I did get a.
No, it's my wife, Jordan.
Well, then this is, okay, I thought so. So this is someone different, and they said that the mayor in particular cannot be heard clearly.
Yes, I was given a similar message, so it, could specifically be the mayor, I'm not sure.
Well, he doesn't generally say much, so that may not be very much missing. This is the output. That's.
Yeah, just talk louder, I guess.
Yeah, I could do that.
I'll try to talk quieter too, because it sounds like we're coming through loud and clear. So.
Well, I'm certainly hearing everyone well, but maybe they can't hear me out there on YouTube, but that may not be a large loss for most people. Anyway, so Councilor Patty, you want to forge ahead with a motion?
sure do. Mr. Mayor, I motion to recommend the city manager reopen the Stayton Family Memorial Pool at the assumed risks.
I'll second.
So we have a motion to, I want to catch the last part of that. With the assumed risks, okay? The motion and the second are to recommend the city manager reopening the Stayton Family Memorial Pool with the assumed risks. Discussion.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I was just going to say that I would abstain from this vote, even though I would love to be voting yes.
Yeah, the only comment I'll make is I think, I'm with you on this, Councilor Patty. I think we should go ahead and do it, just if for nothing else, just to get the staff and employees of the pool trained up and aware of what we're gonna have to do in the future, whenever that happens. You know, the decision might be taken out of our hands at some point anyway. As far as potentially being locked back down. So I think we go ahead and do it, get everybody on the same page for when we are able, and go from there.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
This is Councilor Patty again. I just wanted to go ahead and say, you know, I get the risks to COVID-19, and, you know, it is dangerous. It's not without risk. Pretty much anything we do now is not without risk when we go outside of our homes. I think that, or at least I know that everyone in the state has probably heard about this, and if they don't, they're going to have to sign a piece of paper acknowledging all these risks. And I choose to trust in folks who live in Stayton to make a good choice for themselves, whether or not to utilize our facilities. And that is the reason for my vote and my motions.
Thank you. All right. Any other discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes. Hello.
I would like to open the pool too, but my concern comes from the fact that we are excluding a population from the pool, which, I mean, I might have a little bias here because I have kids, but we're excluding a population from the pool that, I mean, we're in summer, they can't use it, and, I mean, I would love to hear some creative ways. I mean, even on our aquatic programs, it talks about what Councilor Hook said to do, you know, consider some semi-private, private lessons with parents in the water. So, I mean, obviously, you know, we're just trying to open it slowly, but I would love to hear, you know, some kind of, since we're in this unprecedented time, so we can come up with some unprecedented solutions to these issues. I know a lot of families like mine, our swim lessons were cut in the middle of them. And water safety is a big deal to me growing up as a lifeguard. So, I mean, I think they're important, and for us to figure out a way to service, you know, this population of our community, again, that is being obviously left out.
So I can add that children can come to the classes. That is not a problem when they pre-register. They just need to know because 20 will be the max. So if mom comes with her child to take the aqua aerobics class, they can come. They're not being excluded. And this is the beginning phase of opening. And I am sure with time that this schedule will not be set until phase 3. This is just the start of opening, if that helps.
I think it seems to offer hope that Councilor Orr can take her children over to the pool, and if there's only a few others there, that she can splash around with them and make it work. Go ahead, somebody else.
Sure, the people who are doing water aerobics would love to have 5- and 6-year-olds splashing around while they're trying to do their water aerobics. That's just my opinion.
Well, then leave them alone. We've got to do this.
Thank you, Mayor.
We've got to do this as hard as we can, Councilor. And there'll be some rocks in the road.
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Yeah, this is Counselor Patty again. I would just like to respond and say I too, you all know I have kids as well. And I can't wait to see it open to them too. But we got to crawl before we walk and then we run. So we got to get staff online with these protocols first so that they understand how to utilize them and effectively manage these guidelines as the pool's open. Because we don't want to step back after we've already opened. I'd like to see the pool stay open and continue to offer as many amenities as possible, especially until we can get this levy passed again.
Absolutely, here. Good.
Ms. Mayor,
Yes.
I'm just curious if there's when the next conversation is going to be about having kids start in whatever capacity that is. I'd like to really get kind of a firm date on when we can at least talk about this again.
I won't be able to give a firm date.
We can talk about it though?
Well, this challenge we're facing, and like Billy said, we're looking at lessons that we can do with parent taught, but there isn't really any protocols in place or something we can do. We're really going to be following all of this as we continue to progress and go forward. So we're going to be a little bit guided by the limitations that we have in terms of procedures and protocols, and then looking at how programs can work. And I agree, all of this is, if I were to say, honestly, my recommendation would be not to open the pool. That's my honest statement, because I think the risk on this is so great that we shouldn't do it. But I brought it forward, and I'm going to defer to you on all of this because I think there is more at play than just that. I think the recommendation from CIS and even the city attorney would be the same type thing. If we have an outbreak at our pool, it could be devastating to us financially. And that's, I tried to lay that out in there. So I think, again, with all this, we're trying to figure out ways to try to adapt with COVID-19, to be respectful of that, and to try to minimize the risk and challenges that we have in terms of minimizing these risks. And as we go forward, talking about swim lessons are part of this, how we can do that successfully is going to be an ongoing challenge. But I also agree with Councilor McDonald that I do think there's a distinct possibility that some of this may be taken out of our hands going forward, especially if outbreaks continue to happen. And so, we're moving forward and trying to be progressive, as quickly as we can, as cautious as we can. But the governor last week, made it what I think pretty clear that she's considering rolling back some of these things. And so I think pools would be one of the first things that would, pools, gyms, similar type things on there. I think the other important thing to understand is we're not a for-profit organization. So this is brought up as much as anything too, to show that the decisions being made here are trying to just look in the best interest of the community and trying to figure out ways to allow people who rely on the pool for various services to come. And I would like to see those services come too. I personally, I have a daughter we need to get in swim lessons, and we've been wanting to do it for a while. And I have been talking with Billy for a long time about that. So, it's something that we need to do as a family as well. So believe me, we would love to, and my daughter loves being in a pool. What's a hotel? It doesn't matter how bad the room is as long as I have a pool, right? So all of these things are important aspects of what we consider. And we'll continue to try to expand as we get more information. We'll continue to try to expand as we talk to other entities on what can be successful. But children right now with some of those challenges are still a challenge. And like the conversation I just had with Billy here, really is, she's looking at ways to try to do this successfully, but there is going to be challenges. And when the time frame can be, I really can't say. And if the guidance is that we want to try to move forward with these programs as we can, we can move forward with that and let the community know. I don't know if there needs to be a conversation. It's just going to be a matter of how we mitigate those risks and how we make sure we can set up the protocols so that we can show we're following the guidance of the recommendations that are given to us. Again, thinking of this from a legal point of view, it's really important for us to be able to show a value and a consistency in the application of the safety protocols. And I feel confident that Billy has spent, and Susanna can talk about this, significant time and energy making sure that the best of our abilities we can show a real sincere effort to do all those things.
Does anyone else remember or aware of why that pool was built in the first place back in the 1970s. Anyone else around in the early 70s when we built that with $100,000 from the Bureau of Outdoor Recreation? It was built to promote water safety, to get away from reading about kids drowning in the summer, playing in rivers and streams and whatnot, especially the North Fork. And that's what that thing was for. So any of us that have been around here a long time know that that's even more important than the recreation part of it. It's just water safety, get those kids able to swim. So I've certainly been a fan of that for a long, long time, and will continue to be.
Oh, so swimming lessons are important. Okay, good to know.
That is the most important thing.
Okay, I'm glad we can agree on something, Mr. Mayor.
It's good, yeah, once in a while we should. No, but that's absolutely the primary thing that's for. But it's become other things. Water aerobics and swim teams and whatnot. It's become other things over the years, but that was the primary focus of it, and good thing. Anyway.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, absolutely.
Keith, you brought up that at our next meeting, or I believe you said the next meeting, we're going to be talking about the levy and how we want to deal with that. And I mean, that comes to mind for me when we were discussing options at the pool, options at the library, options at the park. And so those things come to my mind if we, how do we justify having people vote yes on those things when they don't have access to them? So that's just something that I've just been kind of mulling over and thinking about as well, as trying to find the balance in all of this as well. So just my thoughts on that.
Anyone else before we go to a vote on this?
Yes, actually, Mr. Mayor, I am with Councilor Cook. I'd like to see us have another conversation, and it just goes back to that. I mean, even when we just had a conversation about, the governor's, orders, or excuse me, the lawsuit, and there wasn't really anything that happened with it, but just so that we have a set date, so that we can say, like, okay, this is when we're going to talk about it, and if nothing has changed, then nothing has changed, but at least we have, we have an opportunity, because what happens is we ask for something to be on the agenda, and it doesn't always get on the agenda. So I'd like to see a set date as well, and again, if nothing happens with it, then nothing happens with it. If nothing changes, then that's okay.
Let's take care of this motion first, and then come back to that if you like. Okay? All right. If nothing else, let's go to a vote on this question to reopen with the assumed risks. Alyssa, would you poll the council, please?
Sure. Councilor McDonald?
Yes.
Councilor Hook? Councilor Patty?
Yes.
Councilor Ort?
Yes.
And Councilor Mullen?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 4-0 with Councilor Hook abstaining.
Okay. Shall we finish up the state of business tonight and then come back to that firm date or another conversation? How do you want to do that, folks? I think we ought to do that.
Okay.
Let's do that. So, an update on COVID-19 emergency business grants. Mr. Flashman, are you about?
Yeah.
I am here.
Okay.
Good evening, everybody.
Staff report, please.
So just wanted to let the council and the public know about the status of our Emergency Business Assistance Grant Program. Council may recall that back on May 18th, we informed you that we had submitted, that afternoon, we had submitted an application to the Oregon Business Development Department for some matching funds. We had identified $25,000 in the planning department's budget that looked like it was not going to be spent during the fiscal year 20 that could be made available. On May 28th, we were informed by Business Oregon that they were intending to award us a grant. It took about 2 weeks for them to get a contract out to us. We received that on June 11th. And the next day, we sent out several hundred emails, worked with the chamber, Revitalize Downtown Stayton, asking them to share publicity, put it on all of the city's social media that the applications were available. And we gave people essentially a week to submit applications so that we could make sure that we got this money out as quickly as we could. By the deadline, we received 21 applications. Of those that were received in a timely manner, there were 4 from businesses that said they had received federal PPP or EIDL funding and therefore under the state's program were not eligible for this funding. Of the remaining applications, there were 2 organizations or businesses that were determined to not be properly registered with the Secretary of State's office, so therefore they were not eligible. So of the remaining 15 applications, 1 had not experienced the required 50% decline in revenue, and there's 1 that still has not submitted the necessary documentation of their revenue decline. So last week on the 29th or 30th, checks were mailed out to 13 businesses that had qualified, submitted the necessary documentation, accepted the grant, etc. And the total amount that we've dispersed to date is $41,526 and a few pennies. If the last business that I still have not gotten the documentation from gets that information to me, the total amount will be $44,026. The overwhelming majority of the grants were for $2,500. There were 3 businesses that provided documentation of their fixed expenses and received between $3,000 and $5,000, and 1 business with more than 10 employees received $7,500. All but 1 of the organizations or businesses had fewer than 5 employees, and 7 of the 9 for-profit businesses were women-owned enterprises. My written report has a list of the organizations and businesses that received the grants. I won't read that out loud to you, but I can answer any questions that you may have.
Okay. Thank you, Dan. Questions? Questions for Dan?
Mr. Mayor, this is Councilor Petty.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, Dan, I just want to go ahead and say you did a great job on this. I heard you put the elbow grease in. It shows. I'm tremendously happy for the businesses that did receive these grants, and I hope to hear that this other business gets their documentation in so that they can get grants. And, you know, as a community, we can get back on our feet and start pounding away at, you know, getting back to what the new normal is, whatever that's going to be. So thank you, Dan.
You're welcome. My thanks also. Very good job.
Yeah, ditto. Good job, Dan.
Anything else on that? in the few minutes we have remaining, if you folks want to go back to this hard firm date to talk about the pool again.
I have an idea, Mr. Mayor.
Which we've heard the city manager say he can't provide a hard firm date on it. But there is some pressure. Go ahead, Councilor.
Yeah, I think whenever we determine what the opening date will be, we should probably give it a month after that. And then talk about how it's going, what the results are, what kind of attendance we're seeing, and then any changes to state policy and risks we've seen from there. I think, I don't think we've determined an opening date yet, right? Pardon, sir?
I don't know that either.
No. Oh, hold on. I'm muted. No, sorry, I was muted. An opening date has not been determined yet. Based on what Councilor McDonald said, we could say bring it back at the second meeting in August.
That's what I was thinking.
That sounds good to me.
Anyone else on that?
Mr. Mayor, I was just going to agree with the timeline. That was the magic number that popped into my head as well.
Okay, all right. Yes. Okay, thumbs up there. Good, thank you. So it's dangerous to assume, but suggesting that if the pool were opened around the 15th of this month, then by the second meeting in August, that was just a 30-day timeline for review. Is that kind of where this is going? That's what I keep hearing, heads nodding. Okay? Anything else this evening?
Mr. Mayor, this is Councilor Petty. Yes, I guess this is kind of the city staff. Can we expect a similar discussion regarding the library at any future date at this point?
Let's refer that to staff. Keith, you want to take that one?
At this point with the library, we have the standards and protocols in place that we're following. So I know Jana's on here and we can bring her on. We're looking at what the library science and museum program, hold on, let me see if I can bring her on board as well. And I'll let her talk about that because she's following that.
Thank you.
You want to join us?
Hold on. I got to turn her camera on for her. There we go. She should be popping on. Maybe. There she is.
I will let you know that we've certainly been carefully monitoring the situation, and at this point, curbside service provides the best option for circulation of library materials to our patrons. At this point, and like Keith says, it changes often, and I think we really need to be aware and watching it. But at this point, I could not have at this point with public people in the building, we'd have to block off our kids area. We can't use the medium, we can't use the bathrooms, we can't use the stacks, and we can't do one-on-one computer help. And I really feel like at this time, the best experience for library services in that aspect would be to have them do curbside pickup, because the restrictions are that immense. And that doesn't include things like our furniture would need to be removed, because we'd have to have a time limit for the building. And so for us, I think the important thing to remember is that the one thing we're restricting is inside building access, but we're still providing access to circulating materials, and that's the only thing that's not being provided is browsing in the library and one-on-one computer help. And we have come up with some really creative ways to still provide that browsing without having to stop people around in the stacks and take everything they touch. And so I was actually on the phone in the stacks with a mask and gloves on, pulling books the other day. And we've also done some tools online so patrons can do it that way too. And we've even set up so people can print from outside the library building, right? And so I think at this point, we're doing the very best we possibly can. And certainly monitoring, because service to the community is really important to me, David, so.
I don't doubt that for a second, Gina, and I wanted to let you know, I appreciate you going the extra mile and going through and being on the phone with them. However, I do know that a significant amount of my community is disadvantaged in that they don't have internet service. And my expectation wouldn't be that you would call and speak to each individual patron who's looking to browse with you over the phone and get a library book to them. So that's one concern I have. Just
quite a bit for the phone people, because they are on our hearts, and not only for things like browsing the stacks data, but also for how we're supplementing summer reading being online, and we're providing a lot of phone options. Starting last Friday, we set up so kids can call and hear a story read to them on the phone.
wow.
So I think we definitely hear you, and I agree with you about the lack of internet service here. And that's part of the reason we're doing story walks in the park. That's part of the reason we're doing craft kits to go home. People without access are certainly on the hearts and minds of the library staff here.
Okay. Does anybody else want to chime in on this?
Thank you, Jenna. Really.
Thank you.
Is there anything else this evening, folks? If not, I think we'll adjourn this meeting, and we'll see you later in July. And,
Good night.
Take care.
Mr. Mayor,
Yep,
I do have something.
we're done. Go ahead. We're done, though.
I did not end
I
it.
guess you can leave if you don't want to hear what I have to say.
Well, meeting's over. I asked.
I couldn't unmute myself fast enough for you. I apologize. I hit my spacebar key and that didn't work. I had to try to unmute myself. I apologize. I didn't get in before you rang the buzzer. If you don't want to hear what I have to say, then I'll just email it out to everyone else.
Okay. Good night.
That's absolutely unacceptable, Mr. Mayor.